So how'd you get into drifting?
I first got into drifting back in late 90s. It was like 98, 99. Basically seeing cars on in like the magazines and on Real Player. This is before YouTube existed. And so basically cars that were like sliding sideways. And it was because I was into import cars. I didn't know exactly what kind of car I wanted to get. But my buddy was convincing me to get a turbo rear-wheel drive car.
Yeah.
I'm looking at like 240s. I was looking at like Mitsubishis and all these other kind of random cars. And he convinced me to get it was a Mazda RX-7. And when I was looking into how to modify the car, because my buddies all had Civics, I didn't want to have a Civic. And I was trying to figure out how to modify them, and the only thing I could find for those cars was, from Japan, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody really making parts for those cars over here. And so in looking for aftermarket components for that chassis, I kind of discovered drifting because, a lot of the RX-7s and the Nissans over in Japan were being built for drift, right? They're lowering them, big wheels, big body kits. And so seeing the style of the car is actually what kind of drew me to learn about drifting based on what the cars look like.
Hey guys, Elzai here with SOHO Podcast. Today we have Chris Forsberg on the pod.
How's it going?
Chris, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Chris Forsberg, there you go. You got it right. But my name's Chris Forsberg, and I've been a professional drifter for over 20 years now, and have now gone into doing some off-road racing. We did our first official off-road race with Nissan last year, the Nora 500, and we built a 2023 Nissan Frontier, and it now features all of the Nismo off-road parts that you can get in the new Nissan Frontier Forsberg edition, which is going to be beadlock wheels, Yokohama tires, the Nismo off-road suspension, control arms, exhaust, roof racks, side rock rails, and it's in some little custom vinyl package. But yeah, we took the car out, we built it in just a few months, and we raced it in Class 7, and we took first place in class. And so it was basically Baja proven aftermarket parts that are warranted through the dealership for your truck.
Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So how'd you get into drifting?
I first got into drifting back in late 90s. It was like 98, 99. Basically seeing cars on in like the magazines and on Real Player. This is before YouTube existed. And so basically cars that were like sliding sideways. And it was because I was into import cars. I didn't know exactly what kind of car I wanted to get. But my buddy was convincing me to get a turbo rear-wheel drive car.
Yeah.
I'm looking at like 240s. I was looking at like Mitsubishis and all these other kind of, random cars. And he convinced me to get it was a Mazda RX-7. And when I was looking into how to modify the car, because my buddies all had Civics, I didn't want to have a Civic. And I was trying to figure out how to modify them, and the only thing I could find for those cars was, from Japan, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody really making parts for those cars over here. And so in looking for aftermarket components for that chassis, I kind of discovered drifting because, a lot of the RX-7s and the Nissans over in Japan were being built for drift, right? They're lowering them, big wheels, big body kits. And so seeing the style of the car is actually what kind of drew me to learn about drifting based on what the cars look like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so how'd you get into the Nissan stuff? Or is that just a company that you push towards? So
the Nissan relationship, it kind of fell into my lap because yes and no. I had my RX-7, like I said, and I went to California to try and enter into a D1 driver search event, and basically the car just wasn't up to snuff. And once again, like just a very light aftermarket for that car, and I wanted to get into a Nissan. And so I was thinking about getting a 240 because they were just the easiest to modify, and there was a lot of aftermarket for them. But then the new Z was coming out. It was 2003. It's summer. The car had been off since 96, right? And
Correct.
So the Z's back. There's a lot of hype around it, and so I sold my car and rolled it into payments onto a new 350Z,
Mm-hmm.
and I started drifting it, and I just immediately started getting attention because I was like the only person that was drifting in a new Z, and this is back in 2003. And so from there, I went back to California, moved there to try and find a career in drifting that didn't even exist yet. Formula D didn't exist. There was just a couple like Falcon Drift show-offs, and RSR drift festivals, things like that. And so I kind of had a feeling that if I got out there, there was an opportunity to, make a living out of it. I didn't know what was telling me to do it, and to be where I am today, just off of gut feeling, and that's sometimes just got to follow your gut. There was, there was no such thing as a professional drifter back then, but I kind of saw what could be, because there was a lot of the aftermarket companies were moving from drag racing to drifting, right? And so you could see the support going that direction. And so I wanted to be there for the kind of beginning of that hype train. And so was able to get there, was like kind of bouncing around different places to live, went to a couple events, and immediately was getting attention. Met the guys from Nissan Motorsports back then, started working with Tanabe, was working with Signal Auto, and was able to basically grow a small program rather quickly, because they all wanted to work with me because of the car, because I was able to, we had a good finish. I was like 5th overall in the Falcon Drift show-off, but the fact that I was in that new car was bringing me the attention, and the companies wanted to develop parts on it, and so that's how the relationships all kind of formed.
So this is your, what year is this for you coming to ZCON exactly?
This would be my 4th ZCON event. Yeah.
ZCON. What's the outlook on it? How do you enjoy it? What do you like?
So what I really like is, all the people here are just super nice, very friendly, and you have so many different cars. It's like the nicest collection of Z cars in the country every time. And it's always in a different place, right? So my first year was Colorado Springs, and then it was Birmingham, then it was Ontario, California, and now we're here in Tampa. And there's always so many amazing cars that you've never seen before. And to see the people that have so much passion into these classic cars, and of course, very new modern cars as well, to see what they do to the cars and how much effort they put into them and the stories behind them. Like some of these people have owned these cars since the very beginning, for 50 years. And it's really cool to see that kind of passion in a community like this.
So with the drift events that you do, that you host at ZCON, what is your favorite car to drift?
My favorite car to drift would definitely be my Nissan Z. So it is VR38 powered, makes 1,300 horsepower. Everything is adjustable on it. It's fully dialed in as far as the suspension goes, and we have that thing. It just drives so well. We have a pair of G30 660 turbos, pretty much maxed out. We used to run the G30 770s, and it just had a little more lag than I wanted, and so we went to the 660s, and we're at like 28 pounds on those, so they're screaming pretty hard to make the 1,000 horsepower to the ground, and then we run 250 shot of nitros on top of everything to get it all spooled up.
What's the plan with that car? Do you have any future plans with it?
As far as the Formo drift car, we are looking to just like find some more weight out of it. That's always kind of the goal, just to get the car a little lighter so we can have it be as drivable as possible. But we are very, very happy with the overall drivability of the car. It's as neutral and responsive as it's ever been, so it's easily the best drift car I've ever had.
And since you work with a lot of consumers and companies, is there anything you would like to see as in Nissan companies showcase for drifting, like more products and for like product development?
I mean, it's for drifting, there are a lot of custom parts, and Nismo kind of focuses more on the on-road parts that they make available, and so it's usually the companies like there's a lot of the aftermarket companies that are the ones that are developing the parts for drifting, and/or we're doing it in-house, kind of like paving like the new way and trying to find the next niche on how to make the car better. But as far as Nismo, they're doing a really good job at developing parts and kind of trying to rebuild the brand, because it was kind of like a little bit of a lull there for a second. And the team that's over at Nismo USA is really trying to bring it back, and they're making a lot of great components, and we've been helping them with R&D. Mostly on the off-road side, but I'm starting to see some of the on-road stuff as well.
So with the off-road stuff, I'm not too familiar with the off-road stuff. So if you could give me a quick review on the off-road stuff, like what do you do exactly with like
with the parts? You mean? Yeah. So we help them to develop the the springs in the shock package, the upper control arm, things like that, because they were working with a few companies to build them, and then we were basically like the test dummies for them. So we took them out and got them, like I said, Baja proven, 500 miles, and we're able to get that car built, drove it to Mexico, entered the race, finished the race, and then drove it to SEMA from there. So it was just definitely a testament to the durability of those products.
And how was that experience with like driving the car and all that and the development?
It's really, really fun. I enjoy the off-road side of things because in drifting, we have a very small track, as in small as in short. So it's like 3 to 4 turns on average, and we're just running consecutive laps, right? And so it's the same space. And in off-road, you're doing 500 miles and every turn is new, right? And so we don't even get to do pre-running on some of the races that we enter. Like Nora specifically does not do pre-running, so essentially there's no practice. So once you leave the start line, everything is new and you're running off of notes. And so the notes are generated by somebody else, not even your own team, because there's no practice allowed. So they provide you with the course direction, the map, and you just have to bomb it. So it's a completely different element of racing than what drifting is for me, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, that is wild. I see the rain coming down, so we'll probably end the pod. Thanks for coming on again.
Yeah, thank you.
We should have you come out to the shop, and we'll do a podcast out there too as well.
Yeah.
Bring the cars out.
That'd be rad.
Thanks for coming on.
No problem.
Again, thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you.